I'm Big Bob.
And I'm Ann.
What's up? What's up, Big Bob? What's up, Ann? Boy, oh boy. This is not Ann. This is Brenda Ringwood, our executive producer and the founder of Being a Better You.
Oh, we gotta start over. See that up? Whoop.
Practice run.
Yep. Sorry, I just see this
I can't do
BTBY up
that
here.
again.
There we go.
Don't ask me
We
to
didn't
do
want
it.
that up there.
Oh, what up there?
The emblem.
Why not?
Well, because it's
Okay.
your show.
Oh, you're in. Got it.
What's up, Big Bob? What's up? Oh, you're not Ann.
Mm.
Ann is not with us today. We got to sit in, and this is the Brenda Ringwood, our executive producer and the founder of
BTBY.
BTBY,
Mhm.
Becoming the Better You. Wave to the audience, say hello to all 14 people. And we
It's
have
15 today.
15. Okay. And we have a special guest, and I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to this because I've always thought that you don't have to apologize for being ignorant. It's stupidity you apologize for.
Mm.
And on this topic, I am totally ignorant. And I will not be stupid an hour from now because Mr. Don Stuart is going to educate us on the finer points of the Bitcoin industry. And with clarification, we're going to pull back the curtain and we're going to look at, I guess it's not really Bitcoin, is it?
Cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin.
See, that's one of the things we
You
talked about.
explained it great earlier.
Kleenex and facial tissue. Everybody says Kleenex, but it's a brand name. Everybody says Bitcoin, it's a brand name, but actually it's cryptocurrency.
Correct.
All right, Don, when did cryptocurrency start?
2009. So the white paper, which was just a short, brief technical document for the idea of Bitcoin, was released on Halloween in 2009. And so Bitcoin was actually the original first cryptocurrency. And now, 15 years later, there's many tens of thousands of different
10,000 cryptos.
Yes.
We got a lot of time here, so we're going to get pretty deep in it.
Sure.
Out of the 10,000, how many survive?
So that number goes down and down and down every year. Most, in my opinion, everything except Bitcoin is not worth even wasting time thinking about, investing in, et cetera.
So
because
when you
they're
say
all
Bitcoin, you mean the real Bitcoin.
the real Bitcoin,
The
yes,
original.
the original
Tissue paper.
Yes.
Kleenex.
The Kleenex.
The
The Kleenex.
Correct.
But people invest in it because they want the grand slam over the fence home run that they missed out on Bitcoin.
Exactly. Yep. That's why people invest in other cryptocurrencies outside of Bitcoin generally.
Right.
Yes,
They're
for sure.
looking to become billionaires with a
Yep.
$200 investment.
Everybody thinks they've missed the boat on Bitcoin because, even 10 years ago, let alone, 15 years ago when it was invented, it was less than $1. So, and now it's 70,000 and change. So everybody thinks they've missed it. But let me tell you this. Everybody always says it's too late, and then you fast forward a couple of years from then, and it wasn't too late, which I think is still the case.
So when Bitcoin came out, where was it at price point?
So for the first 6 months to a year, it didn't have a price. It was just, traded around by nerds on the internet, basically.
Okay.
Was it an experiment?
That's when you were
Yes.
in, right?
Not quite that early, I wish.
No, I wasn't meaning calling you a nerd.
No.
I mean, I didn't. Did it sound like I was calling him a
Yeah,
nerd?
good.
Let's just say if
I
I
didn't mean that.
if I had Bitcoin from then, I would have my own island by now, and I wouldn't be here with you two wonderful people. So, no
Well, we're
offense.
glad you're here, but we also want you to have your own island.
Right. So
Correct.
where else would I vacation? So when did you get in Bitcoin?
So I got involved initially in 2016.
Wow, I thought you were involved
Much earlier?
much earlier.
No. So this is coming up on 7-8 years now for me, which seems like a long time. Which is about half the life of Bitcoin.
Where was Bitcoin when you got in?
Sub 1,000? It was around between like $600 and $800 at that time.
Oh, so you're not a billionaire.
I'm not a billionaire. No. Not yet.
Have you ever done the arithmetic of what would have happened if you got involved in 2010?
Sure. Yep. And there's even like calculators online where you can plug in a date
no,
and it'll show you, the price of Bitcoin at that time, and you can play
Most
around with the numbers.
calculators don't have numbers that go up that
That
high.
big. Yeah. True.
I mean, you gotta divide by 100 and
Right.
up it. Okay.
Yep. And I've done, pretty much anybody that's been involved in the industry or ecosystem.
700 to 7,000 to 70,000.
Yep.
So you only got 2 extra zeros on your investment.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. 100x, which that's pretty good.
Yeah, but if you got involved at the right time, it would have been 4 zeros.
Could have been 10,000 or more. Yeah, for sure.
Four zeros.
Mhm.
So let me explain to you the guys who got involved in the beginning. I don't have a calculator, but we're pretty good with numbers, right?
Yeah.
$1 a share. Was it ever $1 a share?
Yes.
Okay. $1 a share, you buy 1,000 shares.
1,000 Bitcoin, not a share, but yes.
1,000. But doesn't it trade like stocks?
It does now. It hasn't always been that way.
Okay.
Well-
Well, we'll get around to
We'll
that.
get around to that.
Just explain Bitcoin, because he said shares, you
Right.
said Bitcoin. So put it so they understand that.
Yes. So when you hear share, you think of like a share of a company, right?
Mhm.
That's traded
Stocks
on a
and
stock
bonds.
exchange.
Right,
Right,
right.
right. So Bitcoin is not that. It is its own digital commodity, is how I like to explain it.
I don't understand digital commodity. Do you?
Okay, let's start with
Hopefully he's
commodity.
gonna tell us.
So think
Commodity.
of a barrel of oil, right?
Or a bar of
Big
gold.
Or a bar of gold. Yes, exactly.
bar of gold.
Bar
all
of
right.
gold.
So yeah, Bitcoin is often described as digital gold. So that's a good
Okay.
example. So when you go to buy physical gold, right? Like if you want to buy a gold coin or a gold bar, you're not buying a share of that gold. You're buying whatever piece of gold that is.
You're buying the
it's-
whole thing.
Right, exactly. So it's the same thing when you're discussing Bitcoin. So say you have $70,000 spare change lying around, you can go out and buy a Bitcoin, right? And you can do that on various exchanges now, even
Do you
even
own-
on the
do you
regular
own
stock
any
market.
Bitcoins?
I do. I own some. Yeah.
Real coins.
So they're still physical, which is kind of an interesting term, but they are physical in cyberspace. So it's
That's
not
where I get
something
confused right there.
right.
There's
We'll
so
get
many
there.
confu-
Yeah.
there is so much to learn about this,
Yes.
Right.
right? So I'm going to go back to the arithmetic.
Sure.
If you bought it for $1 a share
Yep. $1 Bitcoin. Yep.
and you bought 1,000 of it,
Yep.
what are you laughing at? You
It's
know,
not a share.
I'm following.
it's about communicating.
Yes.
When I say share, everybody understands.
It's a Bitcoin.
right? It's a Bitcoin.
Okay.
When you buy this digital that currency that
Mhm.
doesn't exist, it's up in the cloud, which I don't get either. Talking of which, today is the eclipse, so there will be no clouds for a while. So it's $1 a coin,
Yes.
and you buy 1,000 coins.
Mhm.
1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, 10 million.
Right.
So if someone had invested $1,000 15 years ago, 14, 15 years ago,
Yep.
$1,000 would be worth
70,000 times 1,000, so 70 million, 700 million.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
that's
700
life-changing.
million.
That's life-changing money.
Yes, for sure. But it was hard to buy back then. It was very hard to buy back then.
Is it easy to buy now?
It's easy to buy now. Yes. So
All right.
yeah,
Okay, so let's start filling in all this crap.
let's do it.
This is tough.
You're
So-
making him work today.
Yeah. Oh, that's because I'm ignorant.
Do you want me to start by explaining?
Yes.
Yeah,
Let me
thank
explain
you.
what it is.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Oh,
What the heck is
thank
it?
you.
Okay, so at its very basic form, Bitcoin is just computer code and math. So think of like Microsoft operating system that you use on your PC, right? All that is just a
X's and
library.
O's?
Yes, exactly. Binary code. A library of a code base that does certain things when you tell your computer to point, click, whatever. The code behind Microsoft Office does all those things. So you can think of Bitcoin in a similar way. It's just a code base that exists on the internet in cyberspace, and it has a very specific set of functions that it runs. So basically all it does is send, receive, and store data of who owns what on the blockchain. And we can talk about what a blockchain is too, but at its very basic form, Bitcoin is just code and math on the internet.
And you use it to exchange?
So to exchange value,
okay.
yes.
I always thought it was set up like a barter system.
I mean, so people can barter using the currency of Bitcoin.
Right.
But at its most basic form, it's just math and code. The value of Bitcoin came later when people realized that it's a fixed supply and only 21 million Bitcoins will ever exist. And so that's kind of where the comparison to a digital
That's where the
gold
value comes in.
in, and that's how the value
Okay.
began to accrue.
But how do you buy something with Bitcoin? So it's
Yeah,
going to be
good
kind of
question.
like gold,
Mhm.
but at least gold, there's something physical.
Right.
This is not physical.
In God we trust.
Right. So that, yeah. So like back in Bitcoin's early days in like 2010, 2011, a lot of people that were involved in Bitcoin at that time thought that it would be initially used as a way to make payments back and forth outside of, government control or outside of the US dollar system, right? They thought of it as an alternative currency that people that wanted to opt out of the existing system could use to, trade goods and services.
Was this
back
all
and forth.
created to avoid taxes?
No. So the reason, and nobody knows for sure, we can get into who Satoshi Nakamoto might or might not be, which was the inventor of Bitcoin, and their, kind of the reasons behind why they created it. What I believe is that Satoshi saw a lot of problems with the current fiat system. When I say fiat, I mean US dollars, euros, yens, things like that are controlled by governments.
Was this designed to be a universal monetary
network? Yes, that anybody could opt into. Free market opt-in
without
you don't have to do it.
government intervention?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's not like the government keeps printing more money, and it dilutes the value of the money.
Because there's only a set amount.
Exactly. Yep. And that's why the comparison to gold is something that a lot.
Well, I was thinking, how would we explain it to
Come
them?
to
Because
mind,
at least
yes.
with gold, you have a physical something that you
Right.
pay cash for and you get it, or you sell your gold to get cash to go buy something. So how would you buy something with crypto?
Yep. So there are more and more retailers now that accept Bitcoin and other cryptos for payment. But it's still not very widely used as a medium of exchange. That function is called medium of exchange as opposed to a store of value.
Can you imagine taking one of the bozo cryptos that go out of business?
Anybody can create.
Just call generic bozo.
Like Big Bob's,
Right.
yeah, Big Bob's coin.
Big Bob. Oh my God, that was a great idea. We're gonna have Big Bob coins.
Okay, let's
So
go.
anyway, all right. So you go in with a bozo crypto coin
Yep.
and say, "Let me buy $10,000 worth of something here,"
Right. People look at you like you're crazy.
but they'll take it, and all of a sudden it's worthless. They got their $10,000 worth of stuff, but the vendor, the retailer or whoever it is,
Mhm.
got stuck.
Yep. And that's one of the
Yeah.
main reasons why adoption of accepting Bitcoin or other cryptos as payment is moving so slowly because of that. You kind of have to understand the value proposition of Bitcoin before you would consider, accepting it for a good or a service.
Have you ever bought anything with Bitcoins?
I have. Yeah.
Can you share what you bought? I'm just curious.
Sure.
I can't
Yeah.
go buy a car with a gold bar. So
Right.
I bet you bought his house with Bitcoins.
You can,
Maybe.
the cool thing is now that you can, even if like the house example, a lot of, lenders wouldn't accept Bitcoin, but what you can do is like get a cash loan against your Bitcoin, and then do whatever you want with it. That's kind of another story. But,
no. This is interesting. Would you turn your phone off, please?
I don't know what's going on.
So, if you wanted to buy your house, you wanted to buy a house, and let's just say easy number, it's a $700,000 house.
Mhm.
You certainly don't want to give the bank 10 Bitcoins,
Correct.
right? Because they are a whole lot more valuable
Yes.
than the blue sky concept.
Yep.
You go with them with your computer and say, I own 10 Bitcoins
Mhm.
in the blue sky. Can I get a loan for $700,000?
Right.
And what do they say?
Yes. I mean, there are specialty lenders, not like your everyday Bank of America yet, but there are specialty lenders who will do that. You're going to need more. In this example, you would need probably 20 Bitcoin because they're only going to give you, like a 50% loan to value type.
So when
So-
you go to cash
They want their
in,
collateral.
Exactly.
Mhm.
so when they go to cash in, it's not worth 70. It's only worth 35.
I mean, you could sell it that day for 70, but if you wanted to get a loan, they need that collateral and they need to have a
Hey,
buffer.
it's like that
because
car. As soon
the-
as you drive off, it's worth 70% less.
because the price fluctuates so much, they need a buffer there, if that makes sense. See what I'm saying?
I got $1 in my pocket.
Mhm.
It's worth $1. I got a Bitcoin in my pocket, or not actually the Bitcoin, because no,
You have the key to the Bitcoin.
I had the key to
Yes.
the Bitcoin, but it's not worth 70,000. It's worth what somebody is willing to pay for it.
Exactly. And it fluctuates every second of the day in every currency across the world, 24/7.
With every buyer and
Right.
seller
Right.
are open to negotiation. So it's all about negotiation, what
Yes.
it's worth.
Yeah, and you don't even really have to negotiate anymore. In the early days when it was just peer-to-peer trading, you would certainly have more of that. Today, I can just go on, Coinbase or Gemini, or even now on the stock exchange via the ETFs that have Bitcoin now, and I can sell it in a second
For how much?
for whatever the price is at that second in time. So
Like
today,
gold
71,000 and change or whatever it is. Yeah, exactly.
or whatever Apple stock or
Right,
whatever it is.
right.
Yes.
Very liquid. It's actually one of the most liquid assets in the whole world because it trades 24/7, 365 in every country across the globe.
And what backs the value?
Yep.
I mean,
Important question.
yeah, because the United States,
Mhm. Backs the dollar.
Right.
even
Mhm.
though we know we're off the gold standard,
Mhm.
the United States government says this is worth $1.
Right.
Oh, by the way, just a quick aside, we play poker with each other.
That's how they met.
That's how we met. And they give us chips to play with,
Hmm.
right? The chips are worthless. The chips are only redeemed if they choose to redeem the chips.
Yep.
You can have a $100 chip in your hand, say, I'd like to have $100 cash, please. And they have the option of saying no,
Hmm.
Sometimes they do.
right? They have the option of saying, no, we're not going to redeem your chip. Does that ever happen in the cyber industry?
No, is the short answer. The long answer is maybe if you have a quote unquote fake Bitcoin or crypto, maybe you got scammed and somebody said they sent you a Bitcoin, but really they didn't, and you go and try to cash that out. Obviously, that's not going to work very well for you.
All right.
But
How do you know if it's real?
yeah, so this gets back
That's-
to like you asked about how do you determine the value of Bitcoin or where does the value come from? So the fundamental value of Bitcoin is in its scarcity. We talked about how there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. Most of those are in existence today. The final one will be mined, and we can talk about what mining is as well.
Yeah, I've got some questions on that.
Yeah, the final one will be mined in the year 2140. And so
So you prepaying for stuff basically?
not exactly. So let me talk a little bit more about like where the fundamental value comes, and then we can talk about mining and how they're created and how all that works. But
Because you're not
basically,
physically chipping away to get something out of a mine like you would with gold. I
correct.
keep going
It's
back to
the-
gold because that's where we used to
Right.
get our value.
Right, but it is the digital version of that.
Okay.
So basically the answer to the fundamental value question is the longer Bitcoin has been in existence and the more people value owning Bitcoin, that's what causes the price to increase, right? Similar to a gold or an Apple share or whatever it might be. And so 15 years later, more and more people now own Bitcoin, see the value in it for that store of value function. Think of it like you said, as a digital gold or as a digital piece of real estate. It's limited in supply, and the more, I would say, shenanigans that governments around the world keep doing to our currencies and becoming the dollar, as we all know, becomes worth less and less over time. Something you could buy for a nickel 50 years ago now costs, $5, $10, whatever it might be. And Bitcoin is a way to store your value outside of that system. And so the math that backs up Bitcoin is what determines whether or not the Bitcoin you own is real on the network.
So,
And that's what gives it
So
its
there
value.
are wooden nickels in Bitcoin.
There are, people, there's lots of scams, unfortunately, in the space because it's still relatively young.
in the metric system, you have 1/10, 10 times, 100 times.
Yep.
Is there Bitcoin divisions like there's in the metric system?
Yep, good question. And this is one thing that people are generally confused about. You can buy a small little fraction of a Bitcoin. You don't have to buy one whole Bitcoin.
You don't have to spend $70,000.
No, you can buy. So Bitcoin is divided into 100 million units
Oh
per
my.
Bitcoin.
So
So,
you can buy a
100
dollar,
million,
you can
100
buy a
million
dollar's
units.
worth.
70
Yes.
cents.
Mhm.
Right.
70
Correct.
cents.
70 cents the minimum right
It'd be
now?
7 cents actually. Yeah.
7 cents is your minimum investment.
Right.
So I don't want to interrupt this flow, but I have a suggestion for you.
Okay.
Right?
Am I the Bitcoin CEO?
Yeah. You might want to
The only one I
consider.
know that knows anything about it, so yes.
You might want to consider putting together a curriculum and going to one of the local colleges
Mhm.
and putting together a accredited class on Bitcoin education, the history, the background, and how to manage it, how to use it, how to cash it out.
Yep.
And it's because I just learned how to use a microwave about 3 weeks ago. Right. I didn't grow up with a microwave.
Right.
Kids today are going to be growing up with at least a vocabulary of cyber money.
Mhm.
You might want to get involved in the education of the general population.
Yes, I'm glad you actually brought that up because that, in addition to my day job, another thing I do here in town is I'm the co-host of the Kansas City Bitcoin Meetup group. So if you ever use like meetup.com to find events, you can find our group on there. We meet
Nice.
every other week across the city. We've been doing this for about 3 years now.
How many people?
Typically, the number of people that show up are between 10 and 25, I would say, on
Right.
a given evening.
Whether it's UMKC or Johnson Community College,
Yep.
or maybe
That's a good
even
idea.
the Kaufman Foundation
Mhm.
of Entrepreneurial Studies,
Mhm.
or KU or a local KU campus, you might want to consider going to them and saying, I think I'm one of the experts in the region, and I would like to share my expertise. Do you have a platform for me to share?
I like that idea. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Today we've just been doing, like I said, like kind of like the small education sessions, but yeah, it's a good idea.
So stockbrokers get a commission selling stocks.
Right.
If you facilitate someone to get into cyber, do you get a commission?
No. And if
Is there one available?
no, that would be illegal.
Well, it's illegal. It's illegal for Brenda to buy and sell stocks for me,
Right.
but it's not illegal for Brenda to say you should buy this stock.
Correct.
Right? She just can't do it for me.
Hmm.
You might become the consultant
Yep.
of when, how,
It's a good
where
one for it.
to start buying. And you come to me with a $1,000 budget.
Right.
I'm going to tell you the best way to get involved with it, and I only charge 5%.
Yeah. So I do have a consultancy where I do like education in terms of
And they can pay for
onboarding.
that.
Exactly. They
Yes,
can pay for my
it's a
time
class.
essentially.
Mhm.
Yes.
Pay
But
for your
like you said,
expertise.
if you're not licensed to be a securities dealer, then you got to stay away from the
Right.
nuts and bolts. But
How long would it take you, or is it worth the energy to get licensed?
it's not worth it. There's just so many restrictions in terms of money transmitter licensing and all of that stuff.
Okay.
But I think I can help navigate people down the right path, just in terms of like the knowledge I have of the ecosystem. So that's kind of
So
what
when somebody buys real estate, when somebody buys a stock and bond,
Mhm.
They have a target return on investment.
Correct.
What is the target return on investment in Bitcoin?
Yeah. So we like to use, when I say we, I mean people in the industry,
In the
I guess,
industry.
such as me.
Mhm.
But what I would call the hurdle rate for Bitcoin in terms of a target return is, in the past, it's been approximately like 50% a year for Bitcoin if you average it out over the previous 15 years.
It's a big increase.
yeah.
So somebody buys $1,000 worth at the end of a year, could be 1,500 to
1,500,
2,000.
That's what 50% means.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is an average, and I think that will come down over time, obviously, because that's the law of large numbers.
Right.
It's hard to keep that up. But
So
even in the
now's the
last
time.
Wait a
Right,
second.
right.
How many years have you been doing this?
8, almost 8.
8. So $1 becomes $1.50, becomes 2 1/4, becomes a little over 3, becomes a little over 4.50, becomes a little over 7, becomes a little bit close to 10, comes close to 15, come close to 22. So your dollar is now worth $22.
A little bit more, but yeah, it's close to that. Yeah.
It's more like 30.
Well, okay.
Thought you knew numbers.
And it depends, of course. People are always buying and selling and have different cost bases.
Do you sell some just for to pay for your groceries, to have the cash in?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm always buying and selling and switching
Mhm.
things around over the last 8 years or whatever. But I still do have some of those original Bitcoins from my first.
So what
My
That
made
first
you
you
bought
get
for
into
700.
Yes.
why Bitcoin? What made you get into that?
So good question. So usually how people get involved is what's called FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And it's usually during one of the times when Bitcoin has one of its crazy bull runs, which is what happened in 2016, 2017, which is when I first learned about Bitcoin from a friend. And so at first, that's what it was for me. I saw, this train just going crazy. I thought, oh, this will
You
be
wanted on it.
an easy way to make some money, right? And so I got involved, promptly bought also like 25 other cryptocurrencies because I didn't know anything about anything at that time.
Any of them still around?
There's still a few of them are still around, but they're worth like 99% less than they were at that time, which is
So
usually
you bought $1, now it's worth a penny.
yes.
All right.
So
Wait.
Yep.
This is important to know.
it is.
It's real stuff.
Cyber currency is not a guaranteed success of a 50% return on
No.
investment.
No. Most people lose money, unfortunately.
Is it because they don't leave it in
crypto.
long enough?
Yeah, most
they
people either-
sell out
No,
with-
they didn't get out soon
Yeah.
enough, or they
Yeah,
got in the
that's-
wrong one.
That's
They
what
buy
I'm
the
asking,
wrong
yes.
thing, they get scammed. They
So how do
sell
you-
at the wrong
how do
time,
you
buy
know
at
it's
the wrong
real?
time. Getting back to your question of how I knew to buy Bitcoin, right?
Mhm.
So at first I didn't know anything about it. I just, wanted to get rich basically, like everybody does.
Are you rich now?
I wouldn't say rich. I don't have an island yet. Once I get my island, then I'll be rich. But,
Yeah, everything is rich. So.
but anyway, so when everything started going down a couple years later in 2018, cryptocurrency had a huge bear market, right? After the huge bull market, it had like a 99% drawdown in most of the cryptocurrencies at that
Is that when
time.
you bought more?
And so, first that's what caused me to learn about why Bitcoin was different from everything else, because I saw all the other crap I bought go down like literally 99 or 100%. And yet Bitcoin only went down, in quotes, like 70. It still went down a lot, but it went down a lot less than everything else. And so I
so
started.
it was safer than the other ones.
Right. And so I started researching like, why is this one different? Which led me down a rabbit hole of, different podcasts, different articles, learning about the history of money, which is once I learned about the history of money and why fiat currency, in my opinion, is destined to fail, as they all eventually do throughout time and throughout history and throughout the world. I started to see the value proposition of what Bitcoin actually is and what it can be. And at that time is when I became more convicted, went Bitcoin only.
We don't use the word
more.
convicted here.
Determined.
Committed.
How about that?
How about committed?
Committed, yeah. And so really it was through that education process that led me to become a believer in Bitcoin. But it takes a lot of time, to be honest. I always tell people, the first year or two that you are a Bitcoin owner, that's the time you're going to want to be doing a lot of like reading, a lot of educating yourself about what you actually own and why. Because if you don't, the volatility is too much for most people to
Yeah, I
handle,
can see that.
and they get shaken out of their positions.
If I gave you $1 to invest on my behalf, would you take it on my behalf and tell me, okay, today you do this, tomorrow you do that, and every day you say, we're not doing anything today, we're not doing, sell half of it today, buy more tomorrow. Would you be available to help somebody like that?
The answer is no, not that specifically anyway. What I can do is explain to you why I think Bitcoin deserves a place in an overall portfolio.
I don't want to.
But the timing part, I can't give that type of advice.
See, I don't want to become a doctor, so
Right.
I hire a doctor. I don't want to become a lawyer, so I hire a lawyer. I don't want to become as knowledgeable about cyber money as you are. Can't I hire you to advise me?
To advise you about what Bitcoin is and why it's valuable, yes. But the difference between me, a doctor, and a lawyer is their license to give that advice, right? It goes back to that whole thing.
But you're my neighbor. Why can't you say, hey, this is a good time to buy?
I can do that. I just can't help you like today
You
buy
can't
it, tomorrow sell it. I can't be that
Right.
green.
How-
Do
can't
you
broker it.
do you buy and sell every day?
Not every day, no. Very rarely anymore. Maybe once every couple of years.
You buy or sell? Would you be able to tell me once?
I can tell you what I'm doing,
Ah,
and you do with that information as you want.
That makes
Yeah.
sense because you're
Okay.
just relaying information that you've done
Exactly.
yourself.
Exactly.
when we're off there, we're going to talk about this.
That's fair.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So you started Bitcoin 16, 17,
Mhm.
roughly. What did you do before that?
Okay, yeah. So prior to getting involved in the Bitcoin ecosystem, which I'm full-time in now,
Mhm.
I had a very different career in healthcare IT. So I worked on electronic medical record software.
So
If-
you're fluent in that industry. anyways.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
If most of
Mhm.
your listeners are here in Kansas City, they've heard of Cerner, I'm sure.
Yes.
That's where I started my career
Right.
after
Okay.
college. Worked there for a handful of years and then moved into consulting and started my own consulting company. Still working on Cerner software and other.
And now you're
medical record
100%
software.
Bitcoin, but
Yes,
you
yes.
said something, you mentioned venture capital.
Mhm.
Talk about that and how you use Bitcoin in that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So after being involved in the Bitcoin ecosystem, what I would say full time for a couple of years, I started learning more and more about startups in the Bitcoin ecosystem, which is everything from exchanges where you can buy and sell Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, to miners, which we can talk about mining more, to wallet providers, all those types of businesses. And I started investing some of my own personal money into these early stage Bitcoin startups. And from there, I did pretty well over a handful of years and had some friends and family that said, hey, we would love for you to take some of our money and put it alongside yours in these investments you're making. And so that's what led me down the venture capital route. So now, 6 years later and change, I do have a venture capital fund that's dedicated to early stage startups in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
But it has to be Bitcoin.
Yes, it has to be related to to Bitcoin. We don't do anything with any of the other cryptocurrencies.
I want to give them all my money.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sign here. But no, I think, and you asked earlier, like if you had $1 to invest, what would I suggest? So when it comes to the Bitcoin part of the overall portfolio, I generally tell people the first thing you want to do is just own Bitcoin. If you don't own any Bitcoin, please go buy some like today and just own it. If you want to
And where would
go,
be the best and safest place to buy that at?
so right now, I would honestly say so Bitcoin has ETFs now, which trade on the stock exchange with all of your other Apples, Google's, all the index funds, all of your bonds, everything like that. There are now, just as of a couple months ago, as of January, there are now 9 different Bitcoin ETFs that
That are
trade
good.
on stock
Okay.
exchanges. Yeah, so Fidelity has one, ARK Invest has one.
Those
all the big
bloodsuckers-
names.
Those bloodsuckers on Wall Street are making
Yeah,
a ton of money.
Yeah, and that does open up kind of like a rabbit hole of, should you buy the ETF? Like, is that real Bitcoin, quote
So
unquote?
when you say ETF, what does that stand for?
Oh, sorry, exchange traded fund.
Okay.
So just as you would buy like the S&P 500 index fund.
Same for that.
Same for Bitcoin. So Fidelity, for example, if we want to use them, they buy the Bitcoin, store the Bitcoin on your behalf, basically, and you buy.
And see, when I hear the word Fidelity, I'm thinking bonds.
Yep.
Or insurance,
Mhm.
things like that. So it
Yep.
does kind of fall into that.
Yeah. So, I mean, even all the big name banks now are involved in Bitcoin in some way, whether through the ETF or providing custody.
You would not recommend someone take their grocery money and buy Bitcoins, would you?
Not their grocery money. No, it's still a very volatile.
Their IRA, take their money out of the IRA. That's a long-term investment, a lifetime. Maybe that's where you get your funding.
Yeah, I think, really, and to come back to why I think Bitcoin's a good investment as well, you only need a very small percentage of your overall portfolio in Bitcoin to be able to reap the best risk-adjusted returns of a portfolio. Have you heard of the Sharpe ratio?
Mm.
Okay, so the Sharpe ratio is a financial term. Basically, it's the amount of risk of a given investment in terms of its historical return. And so you want something that has a good return, but is not very risky, right? That would be the best type of Sharpe ratio.
That makes sense.
Bitcoin has a really great Sharpe ratio, one of the best of any investable asset, which means that you only need a small portion of your overall portfolio to be in Bitcoin to gain the expected returns for your portfolio.
I had an opportunity to buy Bitcoins for $50 a share.
I was waiting for the story. Let's hear it. Yeah, tell the people. I've
You
heard
said no.
it.
Why would I buy this invisible money market? Right?
But, yeah, tell it though. Who originally brought it up to you?
We sold the house full of carpet to somebody,
Mhm.
and the labor bill was $800.
Oh.
And they wanted to pay for it in Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin at that time was like $50 a share. We said no. But what it is, so I could have owned 16 Bitcoins
Mhm.
What is 16 Bitcoins worth today?
Like 140,000, approximately.
16?
700.
And
Yeah,
you were only
like
looking at $800.
Right. 130,000 or so.
That's it.
That's it. That's pretty good.
What, it's 800 to 70,000.
Yeah.
Oh, so I only lost out on $100,000. 130,000. Oh, well.
Well, if it's worth 130, you actually lost out on one.
It'd be like 150
120.
times your money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck.
How many years ago was that?
15.
15 years ago, 150 times your money. Yeah. It's hard to beat that. But no, so the position sizing, getting back to the recommendation, I tell people, like, it depends on your lifestyle, your age, of course, all the different factors that go into portfolio construction theory. But most people don't need more than like 10% Bitcoin allocation to get
Oh, their
the
net
returns
worth or their cash?
of their overall investing portfolio. So net worth.
So if you have 100,000 invested, then 10,000 should be
Approximately, yeah.
That's 10%.
That's
Very
right.
good.
Yeah.
Gee, no wonder you're so brilliant.
I was trying to help you out.
Thank you. Okay. Is this overwhelming? I mean, is
It's a
this too
lot.
much?
It's a lot. It's good stuff, though.
Yeah. So let me try to like break it down, like what actually happens when you like send Bitcoin to somebody, right?
Right.
Or if you own Bitcoin, because I think that's something a lot of people are still confused about today. Most people say, if Bitcoin exists only on the internet, how do you know that you actually own it? Or how do you know
That's a
that
good
the person
question.
you send it to is going to actually get it, right?
Or you're going to get the service provided for
Exactly.
Well, this is the scary part.
And
'Cause
this
it's all
yes.
faith.
Well, it's not though, but it sounds like it is if you don't understand what's happening in the background. So what's happening is, so in the Bitcoin code, right? Bitcoin's just a code base like we talked about earlier. And it's just at its core, it's just like a ton of different addresses. You can think of it as like a home address, right? If I buy your home, right? Say you're moving to your private island and I buy your home, that deed gets transferred to my name. The same thing happens on the Bitcoin blockchain. If I send Bitcoin to somebody, the math behind the Bitcoin code base validates that it's a valid Bitcoin, first of all, that I'm sending.
Mm-hmm.
Once it lands in your wallet, it waits for a certain number of confirmations on the blockchain to make sure that it's real before it's actually the value is transferred. And so once
How long does that usually take?
Good question. So usually approximately about like 10 minutes.
So not days.
No, it's very fast. And what's going on in the background is the mining process, which we can get into a little bit more too.
Yeah, I would love to hear about that.
So
But
miners.
when you're shifting though the
Mhm.
money, it's no different than like sending a wire
Correct.
from bank to bank.
Correct.
But it's
Yep.
crypto instead of the actual dollar value.
Yeah. So instead of the SWIFT system, which is what
Right.
uses what wire transfers use, the Bitcoin blockchain uses a network of computer systems to validate that transaction.
And you said mining.
Yes.
So that means creating or finding or digging up.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
So the miners on the Bitcoin blockchain, they are in charge of two things. The number one and most important is validating that all the transactions sent through the network are legitimate transactions.
Is there a lot of counterfeit?
People try. It can't happen just because there's so many computers that are validating everything all the time now. Back in the early days, it was easier to do. Now it can't happen. It's just there's too many computers
And
on the
everything
network.
has a digital footprint too.
Everything
so
has a
you can
digital
tell where it
footprint,
comes from and
exactly,
where
yeah.
it's been.
Yep.
Mhm.
So miners, they have two important jobs. One is to validate that every transaction is legitimate. If it's not legitimate, it gets kicked out and it doesn't get included in the next block. So when I say blockchain, it's literally a chain of blocks that the network relies upon to build new transactions. So when Bitcoin was first created, the very first transaction was put into the first block. Every transaction since then is validated by the miners, like we talked about, and included in an additional block on top. And so for the past 15 years, it went from one block on the blockchain to now, hundreds of millions of blocks on the blockchain. But the key thing is that every block references the previous block before it to make sure that every transaction is not
Kind of like double
skirt.
checking your math.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
So nobody can skirt the rules of the system now.
So in stock, there's lots of splits.
Mhm.
Will this ever split?
No, it can't. You would just
Because there's only so much of it.
exactly,
Well,
yeah.
Are
And people can
all-
buy small pieces, but
Are all the pieces accounted for?
So that's a good question. And that comes back to the second job of the miners, which is introducing new Bitcoins into the system. And so the way the math works in the code base is that approximately every 10 minutes, when a new block, what mining is, the miner that new block gets rewarded with a previously determined set number of Bitcoin for their reward. And so to mine a block, quote unquote, what the miners are doing is they're trying to find a basically huge number, right?
That has not been used.
So it's called, yeah, you can think of it like that. Yeah, it's like a big needle in the haystack search.
I'm just trying to make heads
Yeah.
of it.
And so basically what they're doing is they have specialized computers that are just chugging through random number generation, basically trying to find this number that fits the requirements for the next block. And whichever one finds it first, they're rewarded with the new Bitcoin that are
So they're getting
generated
paid
into
for
the
their
system.
labor.
They're getting paid for their labor.
Mr.
Yeah.
Stewart.
So I know that's part's confusing. Go ahead.
Dr. Stewart. When I want to buy AT&T,
Mhm.
I just call up a broker and say, I got $10,000, buy AT&T. And he says, whoa. AT&T's not a good buy today. You want to buy this instead.
Mhm.
And I go, okay.
Yep.
Is there anything like that in cyber?
I mean, so like normal financial advisors now
Yeah.
are educated on Bitcoin, so
Right.
they can do the same type of thing. But you don't have to. The cool thing is, Bitcoin participants in the network, they don't have to know anything about mining or how new Bitcoins are created.
How
Because
much
I don't
am
want
I
to know
buying?
anything
What's
about
it worth?
AT&T.
Exactly.
Or Apple. I
Right.
just want my dividends. I want the money to grow.
Yeah.
So are
yeah.
the miners, they find it, they also, somebody has to be validated. So like with
Correct.
gold, you have to have an assayer's certificate
Yep.
to say what it's worth. What is that version of that in Bitcoin?
Yep. And so that's kind of the validation of the transactions, like we talked about a few
Mhm.
minutes ago. And the miners also perform that function.
Okay.
The cool thing is there are thousands of miners
So
in the
they are
world.
kind
and
of
so
the
they're all
appraiser?
checking each other's work, basically.
Okay.
And if anybody tries to do any funny business, it gets kicked out of the network, and they can't do it. So, so there's 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be
Well,
created.
why that number?
That was the number that the inventor of Bitcoin came up with at the very beginning, and it was
Okay.
set in stone at that point. To date, over 90% of those Bitcoin are already in existence.
Physical.
Yes. Yep. So there's like around 19 million right now.
in somebody's sock drawer.
Yep. Whoever owns it's called a key. When you own your Bitcoin, you own a key to be able to move that amount of Bitcoin that you own. So yes,
You own multiples.
I do. Yeah. I won't say like how many, but yeah, multiple.
Would you sell one?
I do. Yeah, I do. I sell them all the time.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
buy them?
I buy them. Yeah.
I might be interested in buying a Bitcoin.
There you go.
Just say so I can say I have
Have one. Yeah, for sure. And that's a good way to learn too. Like once you send,
Nah, it's going to go in the safety deposit box,
Yep.
and I'll never look at
And
it.
then what happens with that if you want to give it to family
Mhm.
or will or
Yeah, good question.
trade, anything like that?
yeah.
I mean, I know we trade them already, but is
Right.
it transferable to somebody else? with
Yep.
that
And I
purchase?
think that's so inheritance has been like a long-standing point of friction with Bitcoin and crypto because it's a bearer asset, right? Like gold. Whoever
Right.
owns the key to
Whoever
the gold,
has
or
it in
whoever
their
has the
physical
vault,
possession,
exactly,
yes.
has it, right?
So it's a key
Um,
though, where gold is the physical item.
Right.
It's just a key to get online to get to the item.
Correct. Yeah, to be able to move it.
Mhm.
But the challenge becomes if the person who's inheriting your wealth isn't familiar with Bitcoin and how it works, they might, look at this little it kind of looks like a USB stick thing, right? That people store their Bitcoin on. They might say, "What the heck's this?" They wouldn't know
throw
what
it
to
in the
do with
trash.
it, right? Exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
which happens. So now the ETFs, right? The exchange traded funds, you don't have to worry about any of that, which is why, especially new people that are getting involved, I generally recommend just buy an ETF. And that way, if it needs to be moved to an heir, it works exactly like all your other stocks and bonds
Okay.
and all of that. But yeah.
All right.
But anyway, yeah, sorry. To get back to the mining thing real quick, the final Bitcoin will be mined in the year 2140, and that's when all 21 million will be in existence. Right now, there's 19 million and change, and the final 2 million, like I said, will be mined in the next 100 years and change.
That's a lot of numbers.
Yep. But most of them are out there. Most of them are held by individuals, which is another cool thing about Bitcoin. It's like one of the one of the first like big network phenomenons that everyday people own most of, as opposed to big giant corporations or the black box
Are
of the
there
world.
national conventions?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So there's a company called BTC Inc. So Bitcoin Incorporated. They have an annual conference called the Bitcoin Conference that takes place every year. It's been, the last like 3 years it's been in Miami. This year it'll be in Nashville. But they get 25, 30,000 people out there every year for this conference. And
That's a lot of people.
you have,
There's a couple of billionaires.
oh, many. Yeah.
Billion.
Mm-hmm. So the very early miners back when in like 2009, 2010, at that time, every time you mined a block, you received 50 Bitcoin for the reward.
Oh, I see.
And that reward goes down over time, the more Bitcoins are.
Yeah, and there's only so much
exactly.
go around.
So those early miners and the early people that were involved in the network, back then you could mine just on your laptop. Now you have to have specialized computers and like a big mining operation, similar to like a data center.
Yes, I heard people can do it in their basements.
Not anymore. No, it's hard to do. It's hard to do that now. 10,
that's
15
like
years ago,
money,
you could.
right?
But yeah, exactly. Which is basically what these original miners were doing. And so there are many billionaires who just by happenstance or luck got into Bitcoin early and now, own thousands.
They could also afford the risk.
I got, let's just say I have $100,000 on paper in blue sky.
Okay. Yep.
And I want to buy a car.
Mhm.
Car costs $50,000. What do I do?
Go to a car lot and buy a car.
Yeah, but I got to sell some Bitcoin
Yeah.
to pay for the car.
Yeah.
The-
Yeah.
The car dealer's not taking the Bitcoin.
Some do, but yeah, most don't. You're right.
Right. Let's just say, let's assume this one doesn't.
Okay. Yep.
So I go to, where do I go?
It depends on where you bought your Bitcoin, I guess. Like if you just bought it through the stock exchange on one of the ETFs, you would just
You would have to sell
however
your
much
stock
of
same
your
way.
stock you
Sell
would want
your
to
stock,
sell.
and
Yeah.
they send me a check.
Right.
Are they taking out, how much commission are they taking out?
So no commission. You're paying like a small, just like any other
A
ETF.
fee.
Yeah,
Okay.
like 5 bips or whatever.
5 bips.
What's a bit?
0.05%. So
Sounds
a
like,
basis point.
is that
basis point.
$350 or is that
0.0, like so 0.5 of 1%, whatever that is.
5/10?
So in that example, that'd be like 50
trying to
bucks.
figure that one out.
Yeah. It'd be like $50 for that example.
$50 on a on a $50,000.
Yes.
Okay.
But or say you have like say you bought Bitcoin on like Coinbase, right?
Right.
You could just go back there and sell it for cash.
Okay.
So it's very easy.
Easy
Still-
for you.
You know what? We just got a doctored
We did
lecture.
in 30 minutes.
Right. Well, it's been more than 30 minutes. Seems like
It's
it's been 2
been,
hours.
how's it? It has been
Feels like-
47 minutes.
Feels like it's been 2 hours.
Are you more confused now than you were before?
Yes.
Yeah, that's common.
However, before I just said, yeah, that sounds great for somebody else. It's not for me.
Mhm.
And as soon as we're done here, I'm going to see what I can do about scraping together some excess cash and putting it into Bitcoin. Because there is no place, real estate. I've always thought real estate is the best way to park cash
Mhm.
because even God can't create more dirt.
Yep.
Bitcoin created more dirt. They created a economy out of
It's the
nothing.
same in every country.
Right. Yeah, it's digital. It's real estate in cyberspace. but-
Universal,
Yeah.
Mhm.
universal money.
And let me give you like a 3-minute pitch why I think Bitcoin's like the best investment you can make right now for anyone.
There they are.
All right, so let me go through the options you have. You have stocks, you have bonds, you have real estate, you have gold, you have just cash in your bank, right? Everybody, I think, at this point knows, especially since COVID and all the crazy money printing and stimulus that happened and all the inflation that happened since then over the last 4 years, most people now realize you don't want just cash because you're being inflated away at,
Mhm.
call it 10 to 15%
And if
a
you don't
year.
do what's with anything with it,
If you don't do
you're not
anything with it,
earning
you're
anything.
losing 10 to
That's right.
15% of your value every year. So I mean, that's almost 50% just since COVID happened in 2020. So that's basically out, right? Bonds are just a version of cash, so that's out for most people. Maybe a very small percentage if you're close to retirement. That leaves, equity markets, which right now are valued at all-time highs. Any kind of earnings ratio you look at, everything's at all-time highs in terms of sky-high valuations. So
Mhm.
got to be careful there, in my opinion. Real estate, which I agree with you, real estate has traditionally been a great way to store wealth across generations. My concern there is taxes keep going up generally for real estate, whether it's property taxes.
And you can't sell it quickly.
It's hard, it's not as liquid, correct?
Mhm.
Big investment companies have been buying up a lot of real estate all over the world, Canada specifically, but also in the U.S. If you think about like Airbnbs, BlackRock owns most of the Airbnbs now, and so it's hard to compete with them on price.
Mhm.
But Bitcoin, like we talked about, just digital gold, I think that's the easiest way for most people to think about it. It's a way to store your wealth across generations without it being inflated away over time. And so if you look at the 15 years of historical performance, nothing's outperformed Bitcoin. In my opinion,
Nothing
it's still
even
early.
close.
Nothing even close.
Nothing even a fraction of close.
Correct.
Is there inheritance tax on Bitcoin?
So it's taxed as any other asset would be.
Okay.
Once it gets passed on, you're going to be subject to
But
whatever.
not if you have the actual coin.
That's true. Yeah.
Because if you have the actual coin, the government doesn't know about it.
Yep.
Just like you have the actual bar of gold.
Right.
Right.
Nobody
can-
knows that. So is it actually the coin or is it the key?
The key to the coin. Yes. Yes.
So you don't own a coin.
I mean, in cyberspace you do, but it's not a physical thing.
But
So
you have that key as a number that unlocks it to be
Right.
able to trade it.
So you don't have a coin you put in the safety deposit box. You have a key on your computer that says you have.
correct.
No, that's not as sexy.
But
I was looking for a physical coin.
yeah, so getting back to the liquidity thing, right? Like personally, I want something I can sell 24/7, 365 and not have to be at the whims of either an illiquid market or the stock market
Or
hours,
you,
which are 6.5
you've got to
hours a
sell your
day.
gold because you're in a hurry and gold's way down.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
When's the
So-
best time to? This is not a good time to buy. Everything is at all-time high. Why would you buy
Yeah.
now?
I think it's always a good time to buy. I think what I recommend people do is just dollar cost average in. Once you come up with that percentage that you want to incorporate into your portfolio, just come up with that target percentage and then say, I want to get to that target over 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it might be.
What is
Just
the
buy a
low?
small
What has
part
the
of it.
low been for the last 2 years?
16,000 and change a couple
It
years
was
ago
down to 16,000.
Yeah.
When?
in 2022. So just 2 years ago. Yeah, it's gone up a lot over the last couple of years.
That's 5 times. 4.5 times.
Yep.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's the other thing too. It's very
It's also dropped.
right. And since it's still not widely owned is one of the reasons why it's still very volatile. So it sees, massive hundreds to thousands of percentage gains within a couple of years. And then it also can come down, 50 to 70%.
So it's $71,000 now.
Mhm.
What would be the swing within 90 days?
I mean, that's hard to say. I think over the next couple of years, we will probably see maybe 200 to 300,000 per Bitcoin in the next couple of years. That's
a
kind
big
of
deal.
that's kind of my
That's a triple.
yeah. I think that's achievable. That's kind of my base case, to be honest with you. But
Okay.
yep. And then from there, it's becoming more widely held by traditional financial players, and so it's kind of lending legitimacy, I guess, for a lot of people, especially now that the ETFs are live. That was a big thing for most people. Now you can just log into your brokerage and buy it.
accredited. so to
Exactly,
speak.
yeah. And you have S&P 500 companies now own
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin on their balance sheet, such as like Tesla, Square, MicroStrategy, which is a smaller company that kind of went all in on Bitcoin. But
The average Joe that buys Bitcoin,
Mhm.
nobody knows they have it unless they tell them.
correct. Yep.
Mhm.
Which is another cool thing for people, not so much in America, but in third world countries across the nation, right? Like Argentina, for example, or Lebanon, people who experience hyperinflation in their currencies, it becomes like life and death. And I know that sounds hyperbolic, but to be able to opt out of something that's inflating away 99% in a year
Mhm.
into something that will store your wealth and potentially even increase over time, that has been a way for a lot of those people to escape not only hyperinflation, but dictatorships, authoritarian governments.
Yes.
They can take their key with them anywhere in the world, and nobody knows that they own it. So
Is
Oh.
it a physical key or is it
a digital key.
It's just a
Yep,
number.
Yep. And really, you can. And this gets kind of crazy, but you don't even have to have that digital key. You can just remember it in your head. And so, as long as you
How
remember
many
it in your
numbers-
head,
How many numbers on a key?
12.
I can't remember.
A phone number's only
You know
10.
your 12 numbers.
I do, yeah.
A phone number's only 10.
Yep, there you go.
I can't remember.
So Oh, so is it 12 different numbers or is it all this? Can you put it all under your same number?
So it's 12. It's actually words that correspond to numbers.
Okay.
Because it's easier for the human mind to
So
remember
it's
words.
coded.
There's not 12 different numbers. There's only 10 different numbers.
But people literally, like I said, it's hard for us to kind of imagine, but people that live in hostile government regions can literally take that secret code in their head and
So it's like
immigrate
we're in a James
to
Bond
somewhere
movie.
else. Yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah, it'd be a good James Bond movie for sure. But there's people like the Human Rights Foundation. They're very big proponents of Bitcoin for that reason. And so it really is, like, to us here in America, it's more of a financial store of value type investment, but it has additional use cases all over the world. All right, yeah, I know.
What do you do for recreation?
Bitcoin.
Listen to Bitcoin podcasts mostly. And play poker.
Are you married?
Yes.
Do you have kids?
Yep.
Tell me about your private life.
Sure. Yeah. So I met my wife at Kansas State. So we both went to Kansas State.
That's too bad.
And
No. I graduated from Junction City High School. So
Okay.
Kansas State is
Yep.
where it's at.
That's too bad also.
This year will be our 15 years of marriage this year.
Really?
Yep. So
First marriage.
Yep. We have three daughters. I have twin girls and a third daughter as well, a younger daughter. So
How old are you twins?
8 years old. Yep.
Great age.
Yep.
Yeah, between someone around 5 and 6 in puberty, kids are spectacular.
It really has gotten a lot easier, to be honest with you.
No. You come home, they come running, jumping into your arms,
Yep.
daddy, 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 right? After they hit puberty, it's not going to happen like that
Yeah.
anymore. Do they do sports?
Yeah, so they are involved in all kinds of different stuff.
Right.
2 out of the 3 are in competitive dance now. So we spend a lot of our weekends at dance competitions and conventions. They do like Girl Scouts. The other daughter's in gymnastics, so she has all kinds of stuff with that. And they do,
Did
soccer
your wife
and
think you were
everything
crazy
else
getting
too.
into Bitcoin?
Yes, she did. And
Mhm.
she's been since converted though. So she actually is on board now, but it takes some time.
Wait. Did you buy a new house?
We did buy a new house. Yeah.
Does she have a nice car?
She has a nice car.
Have you taken her on some nice vacations?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I wonder why she's on board with Bitcoin.
Yep. And that's why I always tell people, like, it's skin in the game, right? As a way to learn
Right.
about it. So if you are curious, you don't know anything about it, you want to learn, just go buy some. In my opinion, that's the best way to learn,
But
because then
it's
you
not a
actually
get
have
rich quick thing.
no.
That's what a lot of people thought.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yep.
It was for the guys who bought it 20 years ago.
But it wasn't
15
quick at that time, though. I mean, there was a lot of
15 years. You take $1,000 and now you have $1 billion. That sounds
Yep.
pretty quick.
it sounds easy to do, but in practice it's hard, because back then it could have failed, in a bunch of different spectacular ways. And you could have gotten hacked a lot easier. You could have made a lot more mistakes. The network, in my opinion, now is mature enough to where
It's not hackable now?
It will never be hacked. Bitcoin will never go to zero. I think those days are gone.
But it's still counterfeitable.
No, it's not. It's not anymore.
Because you can't mine it from
The
your basement
network,
anymore.
right? The network is too
So you
distributed.
know a lot about this stuff now.
She's a good listener.
I've been listening.
You're a good student.
I don't know about that, but I'm a good listener.
So to me, it's been highly, highly de-risked
Mhm.
specifically the last like 6 or 7 years, to be honest. But certainly over the last 15.
How many of your friends have you converted?
Quite a few. Yeah, quite a few. And that's one thing we try to do in the Kansas City Bitcoin meetup group, which I spoke about a little bit earlier, is just try to spread that education and awareness.
Is there more activity? What makes the Bitcoin go up in value?
Yeah, I mean, just the more people that see.
Demand.
Yeah, exactly. Like anything else, supply and demand.
Mhm.
Yep.
So the
Just
more
like
people who
carpet.
the more people who buy in, the higher the value goes.
It can. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, just like anything, the more people that demand Apple stock, the more Apple stock is going to go up.
And then when everybody goes to sell it at once, it's going to go down.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, just like any other
Right.
investment.
Right. And since Bitcoin's like a highly emotional, I would say, asset class, that's one of the reasons why you still see that volatility.
In this year, how low has it been in the last 90 days?
Let's see, 40s, I would say. Yeah, 40,000s.
So I think I'm going to wait until it hits 50 before I jump in.
Yeah, but then you're going to call me when it's 150 and say you missed your chance because it never went to 50. That's why I said just buy a little bit now, average it in over the next couple months, and don't worry about trying to pick tops and bottoms, because that's hard to do.
It's not.
You're in it for the long haul.
Exactly. And you want to have at least, in my opinion, at least like a 5-year time horizon.
But you do
dampen
that
out
even if you
some
play
of
the
that
stock
volatility.
market. You
Exactly.
don't expect
Yeah.
to get in today and
Right.
get out tomorrow.
Right. Yep.
Makes a difference.
It does. Yep.
Intimidating,
For sure.
right? If you're ignorant, not stupid, ignorant, this is very intimidating.
I understand. It was for me as well. Yep. And that's where like education, I think, does
Because
a big,
we're
a
not
big role.
we're not talking about a $200 investment here.
I mean, it can be if you want to just buy a little bit.
It can be $1.
It can be 7 cents if you want.
Hold on, I got 7 cents.
I can send you 7 cents worth of Bitcoin right now from my
Hold on.
phone in 2 seconds.
Hold on. Seven,
Oh, he really does.
I really do. I got 70 cents. Oh boy.
All right.
I'm gonna buy a bunch.
I'm sending it to you as soon as we're done here. I got it on my phone.
All right.
Experiment in
Now I-
progress. Let's go.
Now I'm officially the Bitcoin family.
Perfect.
Don, thank you very, very
Thank
much.
you.
This has been
This was fun.
Very educational.
it's not been fun. This has not been fun. This has been enlightening, educational, intimidating.
Mhm.
I'm scared so much more now because now I know what I don't know.
Right.
Now I know there's a whole world out there that I am totally clueless about. But the answer is find somebody
hmm
who will help you and walk you through this. Are you looking for clients?
Always, yeah. And
So
let me,
how do they get in touch with you?
yeah, for sure. Go to KC Bitcoiners, so Bitcoin ERS at the end, .com, and that's our meetup website, and it has my contact information there too. So that's
You
the
want
easiest
to
place
give
for
out your
people to
own
find us.
phone?
Not necessarily.
Your wife's phone number?
Kids' social security numbers too. All that.
All of that, you know.
Yeah, KCBitcoiners.com. You'll
You
find
got
us there.
anything for him?
I think he's about covered it all.
Great.
No, I think he could probably go for another 14 hours.
Oh, I'm sure he could, but I think he has touched on it all.
I have a newfound respect and admiration for what you've accomplished because it's self-taught, self-motivated, in a true entrepreneurial spirit
Mhm.
of no crutch, no excuses. I'm going this path,
Right.
and you made it happen for yourself. I don't know what your best year of income was before you got into Bitcoin,
Mhm.
but I got to believe you've blown it away and are living a totally different lifestyle now
Yeah.
because of the commitment you made 7 years ago.
You're correct. Yep, for sure.
Um,
And that's the really cool thing about it. Like it can change people's lives. And that's kind of like the way to think about it for me is you can pull forward your future value by making, smart investment choices. And to me, Bitcoin is the smartest investment choice you can make.
yeah,
But,
you got 100-time return on your investment so far.
right.
So if you invested $10,000,
Say you invested a year's worth of your salary, right?
okay, if you invested $100,000,
Mhm.
you are now $10 million.
Correct. Yep. That would be the number for that example.
So
So instead of working until you're
Pretty big
140, you just work until you're 40.
so basically he took, is that a right guesstimate?
Approximately around
Approximately.
there.
He took, you're set for life.
We'll see if I can.
If you sold all your Bitcoin today, and what do you buy with it?
That's the thing.
That's where
Yeah.
you buy real estate.
What are you going to do? Invest it in something that's worse?
You put it into Apple.
Right.
What do you do with
Right.
it? Buy treasury bonds.
Exactly.
Then
He
it
bought
just
a house and a new car for his wife.
Yep. Fund your lifestyle. Yep, that's right. And then save the rest for your kids.
What did you get for your girlfriend?
Nothing.
Good.
Good answer.
Good.
Good answer.
Oh my God! Look, the eclipse. It's happening.
It's happening.
All right, Don.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Stewart, that was spectacular.
I appreciate the opportunity.
No,
yes,
thank
thank you.
you.
Nice to meet you.
Till next time.